I really enjoy the getting a business up on its 2 feet, and that kind of solo entrepreneur type of situation. But I found that to move the business forward and to start a growth curve that actually will take you somewhere, you really do need partners.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. I'm your host today. My name is Brett Gilliland, and I'm here with another amazing business owner. His name is Dave Erickson. Dave is the co founder and CEO of Screaming Box. They do digital development, and you will hear more about what he does in a second. I want to underscore before I have Dave introduce himself. I want to underscore how he and all the other business owners like him coming on this show are here to give of their real experience. He's going to share some key lessons that he's learned as he's built Screaming Box, and then we're going to roll up our sleeves together. He's going to share something that he's wrestling with. So I'm looking forward to another great episode with another great business owner. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Thank you. Great to be here.
All right. So, Dave, give us a little context about Screaming Box, what you guys are up to, and then we'll jump into some of the lessons you've learned.
All right. Well, Screenbox, we've been in business since 2012, and we've basically started as a virtual company. Our developers are all in Europe or South America, and our focus has really been that of building and developing websites and web assets for companies, as well as mobile apps, both native and cross-platform, as well as working on back-end automation and AI. And we've had 12 years of great experience working with all kinds of companies, from startups to enterprise sized companies. And so that is what we have really focused on. And having a virtual business, Screenbox is, I think, my 12th company that I've started in the last 30 years. And so I've had a lot of experience with offices and overhead and all that. And we just decided for this business that we were just going to do it very light and keep the overhead small. And we haven't looked back since.
Well, it sounds like you got ahead of everybody else when the pandemic hit. We all had to scramble to figure that out, and you were like, "Been doing this for a long time." So,
Yeah, just normal business. Business is normal. We actually had some of our clients contact us and asked us for advice on how to do remote work and what tools do we use and all that type of stuff. So
yeah,
it was quite interesting.
I bet you became an overnight advisor to a lot of people about that. Well,
At least for my clients.
yeah, at least for that. Okay, so 12 businesses over the last 12, 13 years. That's or 30
No,
years.
30
You said.
years,
This one's been around for
12.
12 years. Yeah, there we go. In my mind, I was like, he said 2012. Screaming Box has been around for 12 years. You've been at this for 30 years, starting running businesses. This is your 12th. That's awesome. Then I want to dig in on some of the things that you've learned once you get that thing off the ground, how you start moving from being involved in everything to now I got other people doing it. We're developing as an organization. We're having to step into leadership and things like that. So, what would you say as you look back on your experience over 30 years and 12 different businesses? What would you say stand out as one or two key principles as you're trying to make that adjustment from founder involved in everything to now we're building a business that can move forward without me involved in the guts of it?
Hmm. Well, I've done businesses where I was sole owner and mover of the business, and I've done businesses where I've had partners. And for me, basically, at this point, after I don't know the fourth or fifth solo business, I realized partners make it a little bit easier to scale up.
Hmm.
I really enjoy the getting a business up on its 2 feet, and that kind of solo entrepreneur type of situation. But I found that to move the business forward and to start a growth curve that actually will take you somewhere, you really do need partners. And whether you are having those partners as employees or having them as equity partners who have a stake in the business, the key is that having partners that you can trust and rely on to do their share, to do the things that they need to do in the business, is a really important asset for a business to have, right? And actually, all the businesses I've last started, the last 4 or 5 businesses I started, I've all had partners. Now, uh, the benefit of having partners is all these things. There are definitely some negatives. And so there is kind of, I don't know if there's an art or a psychology or an experience that you need in choosing partners, aligning partners, finding the right partners for a business, and then managing and working with the partners, figuring out what they actually can do well and enjoy doing versus what they don't like to do. And that was a very long and tricky learning experience. So if any business were to say what are the key things I need, it's really have partners, but pick the right partners.
Okay.
And it's very easy to say that and very difficult to do it.
I was gonna say, Dave, we could make a lot of money if we could like ensure perfect partnerships, right? Like there, you hear horror stories and you hear really great stories with partners, but I think the key principle here is whether they're equity partners or just other people around you with skill sets that you don't have. You got to build out. You got to build out the team, and partners is the way that you described it, and that's a great way to go. But it might be employees, it might be contractors, it might be some other way of getting the help you need to grow. Otherwise, that business can't grow past what you can personally deliver on your own. And that's a tricky spot to be in.
Yeah, yeah. And it depends. So if you start a business yourself, and let's just say you get lucky and everything just happens to go your way and you actually start earning profit and margin and you actually have some cash flow, but that gives you the option to bring on partners that are not equity, that could be employees or percentage of sales or things like that. And that's great if you can do that, right? Put you really in control, and then you have total control of the business in that sense. On the other hand, if you're starting a business and you can see that it has real potential, but it's going to take a lot of work to get there and maybe investment and equity and other things, at that point, you're really looking at partners who are going to share your equity. And, it's the same as getting married. And you have to really understand the other person. And, in starting Screaming Box, one of the things that we did, we developed personality testing for all of our developers. And in doing so, we were able to also implement that for our clients. And it allows us to match developers who have similar work styles, similar personalities. And it makes that relationship start and run much smoother, like significantly smoother than just cold turkey putting people together that you think might work, right? Well, I can tell you the next business where I have partners, I'm definitely doing personality testing to make sure that we're all in alignment. It doesn't necessarily need everybody to be the same type of person, but there are certain characteristics that are important that they align, right?
Makes perfect
Um,
sense. Yeah.
you know,
I think the notion that if you want to do something meaningful, you got to have others along for the ride. Not just anybody, the right others. And that something you said without calling it out directly is at some point, if you don't have cash, if you don't have money to invest in hires or in key talent, then you might have to use equity as currency to attract the people who are going to help you get this thing going. And then
right.
I love that you compared it to a marriage. It's like we got to understand each other's motives. We got to be committed to each other. We got to be committed to the vision of this thing that we're going to create
Mhm.
together. And then I think the cherry or the bonus item you shared was, there's some benefits to be had in some tools out there to help people understand how they're going to communicate, get along with others in the personality assessment. Sounds like you built for talent that helps you in your client space. And I can't wait to hear about business number 13. If you ever do that, you could use the personality thing in your partner selection work. So that's all really great stuff. Dave, anything else you want to share about that before we shift gears?
Well, the other thing with partners and partnerships is, you're trying to get different people along, and different people attract other types of people. And, you can have a company, and I've had it with 2 companies. The company I had before Screenbox was in the gaming industry, and we had that company for almost 18 years.
Mm,
And I had partners in that one as well. Um, you know, sometimes you have partners that are very quiet and introvert and handle a lot of the back end stuff or the mechanics of the business. And usually the guys doing the business development or sales are very outward, very could be in some ways a little self-focused because that's kind of how they have to be to go out and hunt and get business. And so if you attract those people, you have to just be aware that they may have self-interest, narcissistic tendencies, that type of personality, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they will be a bad partner. It just means you have to manage and be aware of who they are and understand what works for them and you. And sometimes it works out, but in partnerships, it's okay if somebody is not happy to say, hey, let's end that partnership or let's figure it out. And you have to be prepared to do it. If I had a lesson that I learned, it was that I had a partner and I kept them as a partner way too long
mm.
when they really didn't fit the business or the other partners, and it created a lot of issues. And trying to be loyal to your partner may not be being loyal to the business as a whole. So you just got to kind of be aware of that.
Great insight from somebody who you can tell behind that seemingly, I guess straightforward comment. There's a lot behind that, right? A lot of experience, a lot of pain, a lot of water under that bridge that
Yeah.
you represented with a little sentence or two. But yeah, great advice on partners. Again, I think you and I could make a ton of money if we could master perfect partnerships.
Yeah.
It's tricky. It's tricky. All right, so let's shift gears, Dave. At Screaming Box, you've been doing this a while. You got the remote leadership thing going on. You had that nailed before COVID even came around, and everybody else tried to figure it out. You've had success in the business, but everybody is working on something in their business to help it grow to the next level. What's something that you're bumping up against now in the current state of Screaming Box that we might be able to help you with today?
Well, we've tried over 12 years all different types of sales mechanics, um, using salespeople, using representatives, outward bound, all that type of stuff, and we kind of found over time that the best clients and the clients that are have the most margin and are good for the business tend to come through personal networks.
Mm,
And so basically, the business now is kind of relying on my personal network. But it's really hard to grow a personal network. And it's really hard to try to run a business, do the operations that I'm doing, handling the marketing that I'm doing, and trying to maintain a personal network at the same time. Right.
yeah,
And so if there was an aspect of the business that I wouldn't say struggling with, but trying to figure out for scalability is how do I scale my personal network? It's not necessarily a sales technique question because it's really more about a network of people who are referring their people or their friends to you and who you're referring people to kind of generate business for everybody. But it seems that from a scalability standpoint, it has its limits, right?
yeah, very good. Okay, I love that question. I'm going to try to play it back to make sure I understand what you found in trying to grow the revenue or the client base for your business is that the very best clients come through personal network. Maybe they come from referrals, but that's kind of an extension of your current network as well. And you're busy doing lots of other important things in the business. The personal networking takes a fair amount of time investment to go make it happen. But how do you make enough time for that when you have other things? And then on top of that, at some point, doesn't personal networking cap out? Like, how much can you really grow a business based on that alone? Am I understanding correctly, Dave?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess I want to dig in just a little bit on how you experience because everybody listening is a seven-figure business owner.
Hmm.
At least that's who we're trying to speak to. I guess other people who aren't in that space could dial in, but the people that we're really trying to speak to are especially in this 1 to 3 million range. They've gotten the thing off the ground. Now they're trying to do things at the next level, and they're bumping into issues, real issues like the one that you just raised. And so I would like to know for you, what happens to the business if you don't figure out how to get these good clients through personal networking?
Well, for us, we'll just, I mean, we're stable. Our sales, move up and down plus or minus 5% or 10% or whatever, depending on the projects that are finished and the ones that are coming in. And, we can maintain that. But if I want to double the business and get to 3 or 4 million dollars, I would have to double my personal network. Right. So that doesn't seem very feasible.
Yeah, especially when
At
you've
least with
spent 30 years developing the current one, right? Like, your
right,
personal
right,
network has been around for a long time, and you've
right.
added to it, but to get exponentially more or even double the amount of personal network you have right now, it would definitely take some doing. So,
Yeah,
I have to imagine that feels a little bit like, I don't know, it feels a little discouraging to think in order for me to double my business, I would have to double my network, and right now, that seems unattainable because I'm key to this part of the business, I'm key to that part. And even if I was completely freed up, it's just a lot of personal networking to make that happen. So
correct.
maybe a little discouragement.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call it discouragement. It's more like my desire would be to grow the business. That's my
Yeah.
desire.
Okay.
It would if it doesn't grow, well, okay, that's not very emotionally satisfying in some aspects. On the other hand, we are profitable. It's not like everyone's miserable and there's no price. No, we're actually things are relaxed and maybe too easy in a sense,
Gotcha.
right?
Yeah.
And so I've never been comfortable when things are easy. I always like pushing myself to do better, pushing the business to do better. So, if I was a lazy businessman, I'd probably be pretty happy right now. But that's just not who I am as a person,
Yeah.
right?
12 businesses in, I know that's not who you are as a person. Yeah, you're looking to create, and you don't have to go start another business to create. You could create more value, more impact in the current one. So yeah,
Right.
let's focus on that. Okay, so here are a couple thoughts, Dave, for you. One is, though implied in your response, I'm just going to call out the obvious, that as long as you are core, you're a key contributor to a couple other things in the business, you won't have enough time to go do this networking thing. So, marketing, for example, if you're the person that makes leads come in, and the business relies on you to do that, you're not going to have enough time to go and do the other things that you want to do, whether it were networking or something else. So, just like you have with other parts of your business over time, you're going to have to organize that work enough to hand it off to someone else. And once you do, you'll be able to spend time on any number of activities, including personal networking. So, you know that already, but sometimes it just helps for somebody else to say, it's like, Dave, you got to get out of some of these other things you're doing in order to spend more time over here if this is key to your growth. Now, the next thing I would share is that, for the first time ever this year, we're actually going beyond what I work with a brother. He's my partner, so I heard you on the partner stuff. I was like, yep, I couldn't do what I do if it weren't for my brother, who's also my partner. And we have a great team, a power team. There's seven of us, growing on more. But the point I want to make is, when I leaned on my network and my brother's network for growth, there was only so far we could take it. I felt like you were describing us as you were saying that. And so last year, I finally invested in somebody who had some really great marketing operations chops, who could go and do some of the things that would bring in leads, and that person has been able to bring in leads that produce regular conversations for us with business owners. And the thing that I need to supplement that with, that I want to share with you, is my hopefully a good idea for you, is that I went and hired a sales coach. And the reason I did that, I got to back up a little bit. Last year, I hired a couple sales development reps. Like you mentioned, several things you've tried. I've tried lots of things too, and one of them was I'm going to hire a couple SDRs, and I'm going to have two horses in the race, and one of them is going to like step out in front of the other one, and this is going to be awesome. And I hired both of them, and I told them before I hired them, hey, I don't have a well-defined sales process. I need people who can come in here and help me figure it out and define it and then run. Didn't matter how much I said that. I either picked the wrong people, or it's just a bad idea to hire people into no process. And so I got a mentor, a sales coach, who has been teaching and training people, coaching people on sales process and sales method for 30 years. And he just started like lovingly picking me apart, Dave. He said, look, what's your process for selling? Like, I don't really have one. Oh, okay. Well, that's what might that look like? Well, how do you sell today? It's like, you actually have one, even if you don't have it defined. Tell me how you do it. And so I started to describe to him how we get clients, and he methodically over the last several months has just helped me see, oh, if I build a nice sales process, then I can actually hand it off to somebody to have success with it. So I guess what I'm saying, Dave, is I believe that it's a limiting and I'm going to suggest false notion that the only way to grow your business is by networking. It is where your best clients has come from. I get that, and your most profitable, easiest ones to manage. All the rest, I love those too. But if you really want to grow something significant, you have to build a client acquisition machine, and your past efforts may have missed because you either got the wrong people involved, or you didn't get the structure in place before you got people involved. And that's the mistake that I made. I said, I'm just going to get some go-getters and they're going to go and make it happen. and
Hmm.
and there might be people like that on the planet. I didn't find them, and I don't think that's the normal path. I think the wrestle that you and I have to do is get really clear about what it looks like to get a first conversation with somebody, and then what has to happen in that conversation. What's the clear outcome we're going for from that conversation that moves them to a discovery call or a sales call or whatever you want to call it? And then from there, how do we convert them to a proposal or a whatever the next step is in your sales process? But most of the time, as business owners, we just kind of go do it, and then we don't nail it down to something that we could hand off to somebody else. So I'm in the process of working with the sales coach. I'm happy to put a plug for him here because I love the guy.
Sure.
He's amazing. His name is Mike Tony. He's here in the Phoenix area where I live. His business is called Conquest Training Solutions, and he's just really good at a particular sales method called the Sandler sales method. But he coaches, he knows the method and he can teach it. But then he just has so much experience in sales that he can just pinpoint exactly where I'm being sloppy, where I haven't created a process, or where I'm giving myself a little too much. I don't know. I'm excusing myself from not sticking to the plan or the outcomes that I need to be driving in certain situations. So I talked a lot there. Let me just pause, Dave, and ask if you have follow up questions or you'd like to steer this anywhere else in the next few minutes that we have together.
Well, I've been through a lot of salespeople. We actually have a sales process, so the process isn't a big deal, and the sales cycle, for us, the people that we're working with are SMBs who have some kind of business challenge. And so the sales cycle usually is just getting on a consulting call. And once we're on a consulting call, it usually just goes from there naturally, right? It's going from zero to having that call, which is kind of the scalability issue,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So in my personal network, they just simply call me and say, "Hey, we got a problem. Can you help us with it?" But if I were to bring somebody in to do sales, they would need to find the people who have the problem,
Yeah.
so their sales job would be more almost researching.
Yeah.
Do you have a business challenge? Do you have a business problem? Oh, you do? Okay, well, let's have a call and we can help solve that problem, right?
Right, totally. Um, and yeah, just like you developed a what sounds like a system for you to be confident that you're going to have the right kind of team members to write software and create solutions. Um, you might be able to develop a similar profile, not the same profile, but a similar
Mhm.
approach to get clear about what kind of person is going to go out there and do the networking. But whether it's you or another person, individual network building has its limitations, right? The same
Yeah,
limitations as you doing it. So the other thing that I found is that people who want to get in front of more people are using one to many strategies. It might be that you become a thought leader of sorts, or you share some of the magic that you bring to your clients in the way of expert tips or something. Um, Speaking at industry conferences, I don't know if there are particular verticals or industries that you guys serve more than others. Maybe there's a way for you to get involved at industry events or conferences, but you're going to have to do one to many if you want to multiply
yeah,
your presence. And so, speaking or hosting podcasts or other one to many channels is really the only way to get to multiply your personal expertise, experience,
yeah,
trust factor, right? Outside of that, you gotta use marketing or lead generation tactics to get people coming to your website, attending your webinars, whatever it is that you're doing to try to get noticed, has to be multiplied through some marketing efforts.
yeah. I've started attending trade shows again. I've done so many trade shows in my life.
I bet you have.
You know, 300 and something. It's an amazing amount of trade shows all over the world. So COVID was nice because it allowed me to have a 3 or 4 year break where I didn't go to trade shows.
Yeah,
I started going to trade shows again this year, and that's always a relationship builder, and that always is something to expand. And that may be the best solution for us to at least grow my network and the number of people I have. Although I'll be really honest, I'm pretty burnt out on trade shows. But
yeah.
on the other hand, I have so much experience at them that when I go to one, I usually can generate a lot of ROI from it.
Well, and maybe there's a way to bring some younger folks along or newer team members along, show them the ropes, and then
Yeah.
turn them loose. And even if they're only half as good as you, you're not the one out on the road. They're out there
Hmm.
doing it. If the finances work, if the math works to send people.
Sure.
One last thought I'm sure you thought of as well, but just as we're covering all angles, a lot of businesses in your situation will then go for bigger deals, right? So instead of serving small businesses with X size projects on average, they serve a little larger small business with a project size that might be double what you guys are averaging today. So it doesn't mean your business is bad today or that it's not profitable, but if you want to grow without growing number of relationships, then you got to grow in the size of project. Again, not earth shattering there on the logic, but those are kind of the angles, right? Like we got to build the team to be able to do more of the networking if I don't want to do it all myself. Or we got to have one to many opportunities where you don't just attend a trade show, but you're on the stage. You're speaking to lots of people at once so that they're seeing you and your brand by extension. And they're going, that Dave guy seemed pretty sharp. I want some of that screaming box action over there. So one to many or bigger accounts is the math side of it, and then on the people side of it, how do you free yourself up to do more of this business development work or build the capability, even if it's not you? How do you build the capability internally to make it happen?
Yeah.
So I wish I had a magic wand to make that happen overnight for you, Dave. Just like everything else in your 30 years of business, over 12 businesses, you got to go build a new part of the engine that right now isn't there. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
how do we supercharge this thing? And that's the challenge ahead. I really
Well, it's
appreciate you
usually hard
too.
work.
Yeah, yeah, usually. And at this point, I heard you say I'm kind of burned out on trade shows. Some of us get burned out on the idea of doing that next thing. It's like, oh, do I just settle in where we're at right now? Like we're profitable, pretty, pretty comfortable in terms of my time investment. I know what I'm doing, and that might be the answer. But if you want to change it, you got to be ready for at least enough of a grind to go get those new processes set up, hire the team in, right? Create those channels, and
Yep.
and then you can go to the next place. But I've enjoyed spending some time with you, Dave. I appreciate you coming on the show. It's a great issue you brought.
Thank you. Thank you.
If people want to learn more about Screaming Box or connect with you online, Dave, how would they do that?
Well, they could go to screamingbox.com. They could also email us at inbox@screamingbox.com. I do have a podcast I do once a month, mostly on the technical side, at podcast.screamingbox.com. And those are basically the ways you can get a hold of us.
Very good. Okay, everybody out there, please check out Dave's team there at Screaming Box, what they do. Let's add to his personal network through this podcast. That would be
All righty.
fantastic. Yeah. Hey, for everybody listening, please share, like, review, do all those things to help as many seven-figure business owners as possible get access to these episodes with real business owners like you, like Dave, who are in there doing it, who have done it and are sharing some of their valuable insights. Really appreciate you joining the show and checking us out, and ask you to be here next time for another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast.